Welcome back to the Makers of MidCity podcast. I'm your host, Clark Dunn, and today we have the opportunity to have Nick Goss, a retail broker here at MidCity, on the podcast. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
But before we kind of dive into the retail landscape here at MidCity and the process that kind of goes on your end to figuring out the retail opportunities that best fit this mixed-use development, give us a little background on who you are and kind of how you got into the role you have today.
Yeah, absolutely. I have been on this project for about a year and a half, working alongside RCP and my co-broker, Amy McLaren. Amy's based out of Dallas, and I am based out of Nashville. Together, we have been casting a net for both national and regional tenants to take a look at MidCity and try to curate the retail experiences here through that process. But like I said, I'm based out of Nashville. I've been a broker in commercial real estate for about 5 years now. Before that, I was a touring musician. And so I was pursuing the Nashville dream that a lot of us do there. But for about 7 years there, I was in a band called Future Thieves, and we recorded and toured internationally for a long time.
Wow. Quite the shift from musician to commercial real estate.
Yes.
Was that something that you always had a passion for, or did you not know you kind of enjoyed that element of work until a certain moment in your career?
Yeah, that's pretty spot on, actually, the latter half of that. The realizing how much I absorbed while touring from a retail perspective has been interesting, and how there's some patterns that you can pick up on from up-and-coming markets. Especially in the early years of us touring, we played some not-so-great venues, but they were definitely in the up-and-coming parts of town that had a lot of creative juice and, first-to-market concepts, a lot of mom-and-pop concepts. And so as we toured, we kind of got to see those neighborhoods develop quite a bit. And now you'll see them as some of the shining examples of a lot of these cities. You know, when you look at Rainey Street in Austin, Texas, or the Dairy Block in Denver, the NODA area of Charlotte, those are all places that we started playing back in the, early 2010s.
Okay.
And now they've developed into some thriving retail markets. So there's some patterns there that I've realized kind of,
you almost noticed. Yeah. It's you noticed that they were there, but you really weren't recognizing that as hey, I could do this as a career.
Exactly.
I appreciate this, I see this, I enjoy this, I like this, and I don't like this, but not that I could actually do this on a career level. So with that transition here to MidCity, before we kind of dive into what the current landscape of retail is here at MidCity, I think it's important to highlight kind of the beginning and the importance and kind of the why of reaching out to, maybe bigger ticket retailers like REI, Dave & Buster's, and Topgolf. Talk a little bit about the attraction of something like that and how that sets the stage for what retail is looking like now in 2025.
Sure. Yeah, I think coming out of COVID, we've realized that retail survived e-commerce. It survived COVID, and we're starting to realize that there's an obvious direct correlation between brick and mortar stores and online sales, and they go hand in hand together. So now that we've kind of gotten over a couple of those hurdles, there's a new set of hurdles. Costs of goods are expensive. Staffing is tough. Construction to build out a space is expensive. And so there are some boxes that you have to check early in a development, especially one this size. There is so much critical mass here, which is a total plus. But to start that process, you do need a few main pieces of a neighborhood. And I think here at MidCity, what RCP's done with the city is to check that box is to get a good mix of hospitality and entertainment, and what I think is most important to a neighborhood, and I'm sure any other retail broker would agree, a grocery. So having Trader Joe's out front alongside some approachable concepts like Topgolf and the great success of the Orion Amphitheater, those bigger tenants that are approachable and easier to recognize for folks, it's a good way to start the project. And as you get a little smaller and a little more granular in the project, there are a lot of tenants that want to see those that generate some good co-tenancy.
Yeah.
Then from there you can start getting pretty creative with who you mix in. And I think my favorite part of working on this project is how picky and dedicated RCP is to bringing in kind of the first to market concepts, rather than just the usual suspects.
Yeah.
It's easier to do it that way, to just go with the tried and true brands that you can just put
anywhere.
3 or 4 in a market, right? But the dedication to quality and being a unique project after those big brands exist is really exciting to work on.
And I feel like, as with your home base being in Nashville, there's probably a lot of the, maybe the restaurants, the concepts, the retail that Nashville has that, is up and coming, or, maybe they're fairly new, but they're really growing at a rate that you're able to see. How much of, do you on a daily basis in Nashville, when you're just out and about, are you kind of thinking, hey, what sort of tenants fit the mold of where MidCity is going? And then that process of reaching out, because I mean, it's not a short process. Like, I assume that the process of finding a retail broker or a retail tenant here or anywhere across the U.S. is a difficult and long journey, from the initial conversation to the actual they are building out to actually opening. I mean, it could be years.
That's right.
What is sort of how has the shift now with working on MidCity project for the last year and a half changed when you're out and about and traveling, looking for potential tenants that fit MidCity?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there's multiple layers to that, and there's different ways you can put your strategy together of who to reach out to. What is that prospect list? Is it a generic set of, is it looking at fitness and medtail and services and food and beverage and doing it simply that way? Or is it honing in on specific tenants? And I think, since Amy and I are both coming from a different view of this project, where we are able to get pretty specific with Nashville tenants or Atlanta or Birmingham, any of the spokes on the wheel, if you want to look at Huntsville as the center, those are the most, those tenants are the most likely to act on Huntsville. One, because of Huntsville's growth, but also because you need to be fairly close. There's some tenants that might be shipping goods to their location here every single day, right? So you want to look kind of locally or within the region for drive time. But it's also easier for somebody in Birmingham to have a shop in Huntsville and then maybe make their way to Nashville. And so you're watching those patterns to make sure that these brands, as they grow, if they have 2 or 3 shops in the Nashville, Chattanooga, Atlanta, Birmingham, Memphis area, they're more likely to come to Huntsville than a concept that might only have 1 store, right? So, or from the Midwest, there's lots of retailers that are growing up in the Columbus, Ohio area and Michigan. How likely are they to come down to Huntsville?
Yeah.
And I think being in a hot market like Nashville helps to see who's serious, who's actually expanding. What does their timeline look like? Do they need a store down here in northern Alabama in the next year? Or is it more like a 2028 vision for them? But then the other layer that is super important to this project is that RCP Companies is local. So the heartbeat here, and being able to get, and by the heartbeat, I mean already activating the project, getting real-time feedback from the customers that engage with this development, whether it's at the Orion or a farmer's market or wherever it may be, they're gathering a lot of important data of how people interface with this project. And that goes hand in hand with telling the story to somebody who might be coming through Nashville and don't know much about Huntsville. Knowing that the developer's local gives them a warm and fuzzy feeling inside, as it should, because it's not just another store to pop up. There's more of a story here that we're able to tell.
And as we sit in, I guess, halfway through 2025, the retail landscape here at MidCity is quickly changing and evolving. Anthem House is a big project that has a bunch of retail. For those who maybe aren't familiar with the Anthem House and kind of the retail goals and landscape of what that's going to look like, could you give us a little bit of a background on what that space is going to be? And I know a big target is soft goods, and I think some people might not know what that is. So can you kind of give us a full rundown of that space? Because that's something that people are going to be seeing in the next 3 to 6 months really become and start having some announcements potentially of tenants and developments and openings and all of that.
Yeah, spot on. I mean, that is the next main focus for Amy and myself and RCP companies because the space is available. A lot of times it's difficult to pre-lease in that way for soft goods because those boutiques and those operators are looking for co-tenancy. So you have a lot of balls in the air that you're juggling, and you're trying to get everybody to hold hands and go in at once. And whenever the space is available, that's when it starts to trigger. So now that we have the space at Anthem House, which is directly across from Metronome, we are strategically thinking about where these soft goods tenants butt up against each other and share walls in tandem with the food and beverage operators. So we have Tupelo Honey that opened with great success in Metronome. That we'll sprinkle in a couple more food and beverage components as we make our way down to the point, the green space between the two buildings, and that's how we see Anthem House engaging in that little corridor there, and have those soft goods where everybody can shop down that line, grab a bite to eat for lunch, have their kids at the park, and it's all kind of cohesive in that way. So the Anthem House is in the middle of the project, and without blowing too much hot air, the project is so big that if we were to scatter those users, it's not doing anybody any favors. So we want them to be in that heartbeat. We want them to be at the main intersection where the dwell time is the longest, right? So your Trader Joe's and your Topgolf and other entertainment and hospitality, they're kind of on the outskirts. But the retail experiences are going to be right in the middle.
Yeah.
And a big piece of that is the camp and the potential for the camp to relocate next to the permanent farmers market structure that we have.
Yeah, it's just to our left, and it's going to kind of be that sort of that connection piece to the backside of MidCity. I think most, like, you have Encore at the very back, and you have the Orion, but with the camp and that relocation, and the Camp 2.0, it's really going to start expanding and honestly probably help out your your ability to find new tenants if the expansion is happening in that direction.
Yep, that's right. And I mentioned tenants kind of wrapping their heads around this project and getting that warm and fuzzy feeling. There's no better way to do that than to tell them about the camp. Having the camp interact with locals as kind of the welcome mat for this project for the last 7 years, it shows exactly what the vibe of this entire development is going to be. And so being able to say that that's going to relocate to the true center of the project, it does help show these tenants where the real energy is going to be. And now that the parks are done, and you mentioned we're right next to the building, it's all beautiful. It's not just a Band-Aid on a construction site. It's for real going to be the heartbeat and the best place for walking traffic to permeate through the project.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I think too I've seen it with the Orion as they've gotten more and more shows, that traffic of people leaving the Orion, walking to Blue Oak, walking to wherever, they're walking right through the park. They're walking right through Anthem House. That, like you said, that dwell time of being in the center isn't just isn't 7 days a week just until 6 p.m. It's weekends.
that's right.
Midnight, like it's late in the evening, it's all the time. And I think that's the sort of the buzz that attracts that soft goods, but also maybe there's a variety. How are you strategically targeting tenants to fit that space, and what sort of vision are you giving them besides just what we've talked about, but kind of is it renderings that help convince a potential retail tenant, or is there other sort of things that are more appealing for them as they're looking to relocate to this area that there really isn't anything yet in?
Yeah. I think there's a good amount of tenants that have been eyeballing Huntsville for a while, and there's just as many that have not been. Huntsville's growth has been so rapid and quick that, or rapid and recent, that it's now on everybody's radar. And so the statistics that people look for, traffic counts, household incomes, density, all those things are changing rapidly. And so one of the things that we try to make sure everybody's wrapping their head around is the residential count. And so RCP has been able to put together a packet that is more recent than census numbers to show who's here. And, anybody that's local to Huntsville knows who that is. That demographic is well educated. They probably have some money in their pocket. They have a low cost of living here, and they're looking for quality food and quality shopping experiences. And so that's the story that we tell. But alongside that, renderings of the project were definitely important and still are, in the sense that what RCP is delivering looks exactly like them or better.
Yeah.
So now we're able to tour and show the green space activation, the point, Jake's Muse, everything that's going on where the camp will relocate, all of that being right next to two buildings that are ready to deliver in Metronome and Anthem House. And the way that they look, it's great to get people's eyes on the project, because now the vision is it's very tangible.
Yeah.
And it also helps. My favorite thing to do, which I'll be doing here in about 30 minutes, is to go out with Max and actually be able to participate with the main decision maker of the development team and be on a tour with him, riding around in a golf cart and having him explain how he conceptualized the camp. He's the operator of the camp. The RCP Companies operates that internally. That stuff goes a long way for tenants that are looking to commit for 10 years on or more on a development. So there's a lot of personality and really real interaction that can be had by getting tenants on site here. So that's our main goal. Get everybody here, show them where the synergies really exist with things like the camp and how these retail corridors are shaping up. But luckily, we don't have to rely on just renderings anymore. And the finished product is actually more impressive in a lot of ways.
And it's as you've traveled so much as a musician and seeing these districts maybe before they were up and coming, and then now being a part of MidCity. I mean, we're a quarter of the way through. We're not even halfway through with the potential space and what this is going to look like eventually. How excited are you, kind of, as we've had these conversations of what's happening now, looking ahead in the next few years, when really it becomes the momentum for you on your end is probably a huge thing. Having new things come into Huntsville, having new this, new that helps you when you're targeting new people. And how excited are you? And is there some things that you're the most excited about leading up into the next few years with MidCity as a whole?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's in the name. It can be truly a city in and of itself. I think what I'm most excited about is as we get into the 50 to 75%, leased up threshold, then we're starting to look at a good mix of medtail, fitness, dentists, maybe chiropractor, things that you're going to be doing on a weekly basis, surrounded by your fun. And so there's some tenants that we have on the site now that are mostly entertainment, but as this project gets another 6 months down the line, it's going to round out into much more of a retail experience. And then paired with that, you have all these ancillary experiences like the camp and the Orion that will draw people from outside of the Huntsville market. But what's most exciting is for the people who live here, they will truly be able to walk to everything that they need by the time we get a little further into the project.
Yeah.
And I think that Max and our RCP have laid out a very clear vision of making sure that the kind of wellness users exist in an approachable part of the project, but they don't eat up the space that is crucial for the soft goods and food and beverage tenants to participate in. So everything's got its place, but it's all very easy to permeate through. And so, if I'm a young professional that's moving to a town and I want to make sure that I'm getting the most bang for my buck, that's what I'm most excited about. We're gonna check that box for that person. And it's already happening. It's already a really cool project to live at. There's plenty of green space, and the residential is super high quality product that's been delivered. So anyway, that's as we get more dense here, it's only going to create more things for the person who lives here or lives around here to engage with. That's exciting.
And I think what's cool and unique, and I think we're going to start seeing it too. And you kind of already alluded to it, is that you're going to have these pockets within MidCity that are going to have, more of the soft goods, more of the health and fitness, whatever it might be, but they're not going to seem like they're detached from the whole. And I think that's the unique thing, and that's what I think RCP and MidCity as a whole has done well with, and the city of Huntsville has done well with, is making these parks, these green spaces, these things that from the average person, it's just going to be like, oh, that's just how I get there.
Yeah.
But that's how you connect this part to this part, and that's why it's one big sort of nucleus of city life.
That's right. And that piece of the, making sure that the infrastructure makes sense, is almost impossible to figure out unless you have the scale that RCP has on this site. So, being able to participate with the city to make sure that the roadways and the, angled parking that with curbless sidewalks right next to it, working through things like that from the very beginning and understanding that all of that bodes well for the tenants that are going to be here later. Parking that is super accessible but hidden off the main path. Reworking some roads between MidCity and the plaza to make sure that big box retail is walkable to the rest of the project. All of those pieces are really hard to figure out as a developer who might only have one or two mixed use buildings in, say, a Nashville or north of Atlanta, where they only have control over so much. And so mapping out an entire community is very difficult to pull off. But here, being able to have the runway with the city to start from a structural standpoint and then build what's needed on top of that is definitely a big head start for RCP. And I think the main pieces of that, by having all of the what I'm trying to say, there's less headaches on the back end for us, and so there's more freedom to be picky and focused on curation of these tenants without having any headaches with sewer and transportation or anything like that. So it's just nice to have that freedom to truly place make without having anything hold us back.
Yeah, and I mean it's incredible just to see how much it's developed as a Huntsville native. This space itself, even though it's taken a while to develop, it still seems kind of quick in my head, where it's like, wow, I remember, it doesn't seem that long ago that it wasn't MidCity.
Right.
But it's also incredible that, RCP and the team at MidCity, and you yourself included, strategically plan for what the future looks like and having that infrastructure set up to support that. I feel like as this episode is released and people are listening to this, hopefully more and more tenants are being announced, and so there's new and exciting things that people here in Huntsville can be looking forward to at MidCity. We'll have to have you back on the podcast in a few years just to talk a little bit about some of these projects, because the landscape here at MidCity is ever evolving. I think for anybody that's listening, don't wait for construction to be over. Like, come out now. There's tenants here. There's retailers here. There's food and beverage here. There's soft goods here. Like, there's things here for you to enjoy today. You don't have to wait until there's no cranes or there's no this or there's no that to really get out here and explore. But I appreciate you being here today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. And I couldn't agree more. I don't mind coming down here from Nashville to give tours, because there's plenty for me to do while I'm here. So I end up in REI, Trader Joe's, and all that. But yeah, it's going to be an exciting couple of years to see some more folks sign.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here.
Thanks.